Hi everyone, my name is Housein Cornell. I'm here with Unity's technical marketing team, and today I have a very special topic to you. It's about Unity ArtEngine, unlock the power of AI-assisted artistry. And the reason why I'm excited about it is that I'm an artist, first and foremost. And I have worked in VFX, I have worked in visualization, TV commercials, etc., etc. And part of the creation of that content involves the creation of materials and textures that will be rendered in 3D. And many times we might have a very beautiful model and not have time to do the finishing touches on the textures because there are so many. And maybe just the hero gets really good textures, but then your backgrounds suffer. Your environments don't get as much love. You have all these rocks, all these trees, or maybe you have, a city landscape in the background, and you take advantage of motion blur and all sorts of other things because you don't want anybody seeing that the textures are really not that great. Or maybe you bought a library that somebody else is also using, and they're like, hey, aren't those textures, X company is using? Why is Y and B company using those? And then, it's not evergreen content. It's kind of like, yeah, we've seen that door before. Yeah, we've seen that crate, and so forth. It's like when you're playing a RPG game and you go into a cave that's, in the hells, and then you go into a cave that's in the heavens and they look identical, and you're like, okay, this is the same exact cave I just hacked and slashed through an hour ago. This isn't fun anymore. It gets boring. So we don't want our audience to go through that. So what can we do? We can enhance, expand, and transmute those materials. So enough talking about it, and let's do it. This here is Unity ArtEngine. This is the interface. We have our input, our assets here, so we can bring in textures, as you could see there, or single maps. We can bring in a grouping of maps, which is called materials, and then we can also bring in geometry or 3D assets. I don't have any geometry in here, so I'm not going to show you. It's not really necessary. It's more for you to get a visual cue. ArtEngine comes with a few. You can come over to the geometry and pick from a plane, sphere, etc., cylinder, and so forth. You can also change some of your lighting experience depending on what kind of material you have, and you can experiment and have fun. Again, this is a visual representation, which might not be exactly what's going to be in your final render, depending on where you're rendering it. Which brings me to another theme, and that is that ArtEngine does not require Unity. Yes, we can export materials to Unity, but we can also export maps and materials to any other 3D platform. So first of all, I want to explain what I mean by materials inside of ArtEngine as differing from other programs. So I have this map here. I switched maps right quick, and this here is a map. And a material which was based off of that map. I'm going to click here. This was given to me by Pat Goodwin. Thank you much, mate. And you can see this is now a conglomeration of materials, or a grouping, not materials, maps. Sorry about that. So you can see I have my roughness, I have my height, I have my ambient occlusion, I have my normal, and I have my albedo. So in this instance, this group right here is I don't know why it's called albedo, but I could change the name as material 2 and so forth. So this is my material. When we export out of ArtEngine, we will be exporting a folder with all these materials in them, and then you would be applying those to your material in your said 3D software or render engine. So I could take these materials or these maps and use them in V-Ray and Maya or 3ds Max. I could use them in Autodesk VRED for visualization. I could use them in many other packages. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just a real-time 3D render. It can be just about anything. So we could use it in Unreal as we can use it in Unity. Yet there is one very special node inside of ArtEngine, since it has become part of our ecosystem, that actually exports a full material to Unity HDRP, which is our high definition render pipeline, and to URP, our universal render pipeline, and to our standard PBR shaders. I will get to that here in a little bit. That is one of our output nodes right here, which is an export to Unity. So don't forget that. We're going to get to it very soon. So we're going to start out with experimenting and exploring some of the nodes that Unity ArtEngine has to offer. Here is my workspace. I can drag and drop nodes if I would like to into my workspace. I can delete them and so forth and connect them. This is non-destructive, so I will not destroy this image if I apply a crop to it. I will not destroy it if I do a pattern on warp, which is an awesome tool. So going through, I'll show you what's going on. I have an input, an output, and then the actual operation. Every node has a context-sensitive menu that opens up in the Properties panel over here. So we can be sure that we can change these things at will. So I can come in here and change them here, or I can grab the handles. There's a little question mark in the corner of our 2D view that also gives us some hints on how to use the tool a little better. So without any further ado, I'll keep going. When I was talking about some of the options that aren't available in other software packages that make this very powerful. So I took a picture of my van's seat material and I said, hey, why don't I unwrap this and make this into a seamless texture? I took my picture. I didn't get it that straight. It doesn't line up. It has a pattern. Trying to paint this and get this exact in other software would be kind of a pain. I would have to kind of rotate it, kind of move it, kind of make sure I could get it to work. I don't have to do that here. I can go to this pattern unwrap and it's going to identify those patterns. And you can see what it did. It identified that pattern and then it unwrapped it to where it thought it was best. And I'm just going to go to the output node so we can see what it did. And if we look at this output node, it looks like it's almost a seamless texture, like, wow, that did really, really good. But it's not a seamless texture. If we click here, we can start seeing that, oh, it's got seams all over it. But that's okay. I'm fine with that, because if I had different color strings on these, like a green, a red, a blue, etc., I would want to keep those instead of just having it just do just a one and repeat that. So it kept the variances from one side to the other. That's awesome. That is what it's doing. It's just unwarping a pattern that I happen to give it. The other thing I can do, if I have too much color on one end to the other, I can do a gradient removal. So I went in, did a gradient removal, and now you can see it's almost seamless now. It's very, it's very, very close, but it's not seamless. We can see I have some variances here, so I want to fix that. So why not? Let's do seam removal. So I'm going to do a seam removal, and you can see, I mean, bam, that was like so fast, so awesome. I can't tell where that seam is. And here we go. It did a really good job at that seam removal. So here we go. I do have some options here to change the UV tiles. And it might look a little stretched just because I have it in UV space that was stretching it a bit. And we can change our lighting to match a more one-to-one in our whatever render engine we're going to render out on. This wouldn't be a full-blown material editing software if we couldn't make materials, right? So let's quickly throw in a material generation node after our seam removal. Very quickly, we're gonna click here. And I don't know if you noticed, but now I have a full-blown material. So we can see the difference. And based on my lighting, you'll be able to see a little bit more or less. I can actually increase some of these intensities. I can make my normal map more intense. It's going to go through and recalculate that. And now I have a bit more bump. So we can also take a look at those. Here's my normal map and how it's working. Here is my height map. Here is my ambient occlusion map. And here's my roughness map. And again, these are all seamless. So that is super, super cool. And look at how fast I did that. I mean, I couldn't have done this as quickly as I'm explaining. And here I am talking most of the time and not doing as much. So just imagine if I was just concentrated on just work, work, work. I could really, really rock this out. Remember, I told you, don't forget about that export to Unity node. Well, here it is. So what in the world does this do? So what this does, I'm going to bring out another node. I'm just going to bring out a normal output node, and I'll put it out here. I've added a frame so you can add frames around your nodes just to organize, but it doesn't really do much other than just the visual organization. Just like a nuke, you have similar outputs like that. So, or similar nodes as that frame. So I'm going to click on this output just so we get to see what is here. So this allows us to set up a output of a slew. I think there's, I don't know, like looks like 20 or more. I think it's like 16 or more different maps that I can export to any given render engine. So let's say my V-Ray renderer needs, cavity, I need ambient occlusion, I need bump, I need height, I need metalness, I need gloss, I need normal, diffuse, etc. I can then say, okay, create these maps and export them. But of course, they're going to be just a folder with all these maps named appropriately, etc. And also you get to pick the type of image that is going out. So the difference between the export to Unity is that I'm not going to export just maps. I am actually going to export a high definition render pipeline lit material, or a universal render pipeline lit material, or a standard PBR shader material with everything combined inside of it. So especially Unity's new high definition render pipeline, it uses a special mask map, which you kind of have to build if you don't have ArtEngine. And this does it automatically, which is super, super cool. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want to keep on going. I want to give some more examples. So here I have another example of a image of a tree I took outside, or part of a tree, bark of a tree. And I am, well, we can just look at it like that. As you can see, it's not seamless by any means, and it has this crazy vignetting around it. So I'm going to go and do a quick crop, and I want to resize it to be 20 by 48 instead of some odd, crazy number, whatever that is. I think it says 2392 by 2415. So I definitely want to make it a perfect square. As you know, when we're doing things like photogrammetry, or we are even creating just texture maps, we don't really want the shadow information. We don't want this to kind of get in our way. So what we can do is we can do several different things. So I'm going to go through and show you a couple techniques on how you can take away some information. You can repaint certain areas by using our paint mask, or our mask paint node, and using content aware fill and our hard shadow removal. But first and foremost, let's show you what this does. We have a JPEG artifact removal, which cleans up the image and makes it just look better. And sometimes our JPEGs, maybe we have a older library that needs some updating. We would run it through maybe a upres, and we would fix those images also by the artifact removal. Next, I went through, you noticed I now have options to this brush tool that's up here. And I'm just going to bring this down a little bit so we get to see our, we can have more spacing, less spacing between the brush strokes. And I can open up the, make the brush size. Ooh, I went a little bit too crazy there. So I can make the brush size larger, and I can have a, different hardness in my flow, spacing, so forth. I can paint just on a bitmap, or I can paint on a material, which would be that stack of different maps, depending on what I have. I could have up to 16 maps, one on top of each other, and this is going to work with all of them if I have material selected. Right now it's just a bitmap, so we'll do that way. So what's going to happen is with this content aware fill, it's going to look at where I painted and say, okay, fill that area with what is what that material is made out of. So here it's using some of that artificial intelligence, some of the machine learning, and it's looking around its surroundings and saying, okay, now I have to repaint everything to make it match and feel like this actually is part of this image. So very quickly, I mean, it is like instant, ridiculously quick. I've gone through and wow. I mean, I want you guys just to see how wild this is. Like, I couldn't paint that quickly. I couldn't do that quickly, even with some of the tools that are out there. The heal tools and some of the other software packages you've seen do not do it as nicely. And oh man, this is just so nice. It's just amazing, and it's awesome. And I can go in and I can paint more and change it and so forth. Unlike before, where I used kind of this material generation, where I was kind of limited to basically, actually I'm going to go back to this one. I was limited to these 5 different maps. I want to do something a little bit different. I want to be able to have the option to create maps that are a little more intense. So I noticed that my normal map wasn't as intense in that other image that I had, because I was just kind of getting half of the story. I was getting a kind of a run-of-the-mill, kind of the medium normal map, and many packages out there kind of do that. So ArtEngine has combated that by saying, okay, you know what, you can have a foreground and a background normal. So I'm going to generate 2 normals from my diffuse, and then take a look at what they look like, and then I'm going to say I want the fine detail from one and then the rougher detail from the other, and then I'm going to blend these together and I get a really beautiful normal map. I mean, this thing is beautiful. Sorry, I am an artist, and when I see things like this I just get all but yeah, if you're an artist you're probably doing the same thing. So here we go. I've created a normal, and then I generated a height map based off of this better normal, and then an ambient occlusion map based off of that height map. I got my roughness just straight out of the diffuse color, and we can see that here. It's a little bit harder to see with the way I have the lighting set up. I can also increase the intensity if I want to, but I don't need to. Now remember, I talked about some of the different ways to get rid of some of these shadows. So I still have some shadow information, and that's why I didn't do it all underneath content aware. And sometimes you don't want to repaint that, you just want to get rid of the shadow. So I'm going to use this hard shadow removal. You can use the hard shadow removal with or without a height map. It helps it a little bit to be able to have that height map information, but it's not required. But I threw it in there anyway, so you could take a look at how that works. And I can have a threshold on it, and then I remove the shadows. So really quickly, I want you to take a look. This is, oops, I wanted to come back over here. This is before. And then now I'm going to do the full process of content aware fill and hard shadow removal. And look at that. Oh my goodness. It's basically completely clear of a lot of those hard shadows. I still have some little areas I could go in and tweak. I could come in here and underneath this albedo generator, I could again use the height map, and I would pump that into the height, and it's using the bitmap, and I can delight. So again, a third, I have hard shadow removal, and I have some of the delighting, and you can see it's going through and doing that. So I went kind of overboard on it. I just went all out, but no worries, that's fine. We can always crank it back down and it will go through, and you can see how fast. So it's actually dealing with 1, 2, 3 different maps that it is generating, and then going back into the albedo. So now I'm going to go to my compose material node. And if we click here, we're going to get the full material, and you can see kind of what this material looks like once it is mapped. And again, if we look at the properties panel, we notice that we have a little slider bar with a number on it. It says 6 right now, but I can actually add more maps if I want. And it's trying to calculate and say, hey, what else do I have here? As you can see right now, they just say other, because I haven't made my decision. I can come here, and again, if you are rendering on other platforms that require a whole bunch of different maps, maybe you need a curvature or a cavity, or you need one of the good old bump maps, or a Fresnel, etc., etc. And you can even create your own custom others, and so forth. You can go ahead and export them there. You can also, is it a RGB, or is it just RGB or A, and so forth. And actually, I don't need all these, so I'm going to go back to the 6. So as you can see, you can type in your inputs, or you can use the slider bar, whatever is your fancy. Back on the albedo generator, I don't want that much delighting. I'm going to get some of that back. There we go, and I'm going to go to compose my material, and there is my cool material of my tree outside. It's actually outside my window right here, since now we're all working from home due to COVID. Now I'm going to, now that I've composed my material and I have all the materials in here, we can then look at doing a seam removal. But before I do that, I want you to see that there is a definite seam here. I think in the albedo it's most obvious. I have a little bit of a blurry spot here. This is nice and sharp. That's darker. Different colors. It's green with brown. So how is ArtEngine going to go through and process this? Again, you notice I was doing all sorts of things, so it's going to have to reprocess this right now. So I'm going to double click, and it's going to go through. And did you guys notice how quick that was? That's crazy. This is 6 maps, and it just made a completely seamless texture that I can use in seconds, in fractions of seconds. This is something I could never, ever do if I were using a standard image processing tool like many of us have used in the past, or probably still even use. I'm not saying there won't be use for them, but when you're doing some of these tasks, ArtEngine has the upper hand by far. So the next thing, let's say I made this texture, I love it, this is going to be great, this is going to be my ground covering, or it's going to be part of my bark, it's going to be whatever. And I want to change it around. I want to make it, I want to make variations of it, and I don't want to have to repaint it or go in with the heal tool and go crazy and start, cloning and stamping all over. I want the easy button. So why not throw a mutation node on there? And you can see, oh my gosh, super quickly. This did not mutate a single image. This mutated all of my maps. I just want to make that clear that this is mutating everything, and it's generating full materials. And you know what? I did some options here. Again, I have a slew of sliders that I can play around with. One of the things that I've been doing is just having fun. Like, hey, let's see what kind of crazy mutations I can make, what kind of variations. So here's another shot at it, and here's another variation. And I can, I can add many different things I want. I can change some of the features and so forth. And then on top of it, I can throw a distort node on here and say, you know what, I want to distort this and play around with it. And pretty much in real time, I'm getting this to change. And sometimes I push things a little bit far, but as you can see, it's very robust. So I'm going through and I'm making those changes pretty much real time. So I'm going to keep on going. We talked about basically working on, single images and converting them into nodes and doing things like pattern on warp, seam removals, material generation, mutations, and composing materials out of them. But what if I already have a material library and I just want to make it better? What if I just want to go through and make changes to it? How can I do that then? So here I have a material. So I've double clicked on it, and sometimes if you have this happen, you can just reset your workspace, as you can see there, and that works perfectly fine. All the UI is very adaptable. You can drag and drop things wherever you want, so it's pretty cool. Sometimes I just grab and drop by accident, but that's just me being clumsy. Back to our material here. I recently did a demo with the guys over at Kitbass 3D, David Levy, and some other folks at Unity. So we had to very quickly create this animatic in Unity using HDRP and Kitbash. And we were using some of Sparth's, with his permission, of course, some of his artwork. And if you haven't seen Sparth's stuff, I would go check it out. It's very inspiring and super awesome. And we used it to be able to get the color information. So we had some art concept that was very similar to this, and we needed to match this this color palette, but this clearly is not from the same realm. So how do we do that? How are we going to match this? So what we did is, first of all, I brought the material in, and then I used a split material node. And what this allows me to do, it allows me to break apart what is inside here. So it identified that I had 5 maps. There's actually more than 5 maps, and I'll explain to you how and why. But for the most part, it has 5 maps that might have more channels within them that have maps within those. So I'll explain that. So I pulled out the diffuse and I did a color transfer. So as you can see, I have now applied this color information through color transfer, and that is so awesome. You could actually have characters. There's a few demos out there where it kind of shows you can change certain colors and basically change your whole assets. If you're using sprites, you can change those all out, or if you're just using certain colors that are on one character and you want to create a new clothing set, you can go in and just change all those colors. So those of you that have games that configure, or even paints that change depending on what your object is. I'll show some demos here going forward of how we did this to change carpet color by changing some of the different levels of gray to different colors. The next thing I did is I did a split channel node. And in the split channel node, I'm able to extract the Unity mask map. So the Unity mask map is actually your AO, your dirt map, and your metalness information and your alpha. So that's why I said that sometimes there's maps inside of, full maps inside of the channels of a single map. So when you open it, the mask map looks green. It's these guys over here. But in actuality, it has an ambient occlusion on the inside. And I pulled out via a levels node. So then I can go in and, apply darker or lighter values based on what I want the final image to look like. And as you can see, it's going through and it's executing these nodes. I'm like, hey, I don't want it to be so shiny, or I want it shinier, and so forth. And then I can merge all the channels back together, and this is what I get, is that green mask map. Then the, all familiar compose material, and here I go. I have composed my material, and now I have combined that color diffuse with all my other channels. And now I have that map, and I think I overdid it on the dirt map and my metalness, but no problem. In the final, they actually looked a lot lighter. We can also, based on the render engine, we can then change those apart. But you can see how powerful this is to be able to do this across a whole batch, which brings me to batch processing. You notice we had a batch input and a batch output. So I did the same exact thing with every single texture inside the project we did with David Levy. So I took the same image, I did change it a little bit, I brought down the levels, I did a little bit of a gradient removal because I didn't want it as intense, and then I said, hey, I want to change, and this is just showing us the very first texture or material that is in that folder. And then we want to, apply that color transfer, and then I want to make it brighter. As you can see, I was just doing a test on this one, so I didn't go as crazy as, I could come in here and say, you know what, I want to actually change that to a lighter blue. So I can go through and make a lighter blue, and it's going to go through and make that change for me. Very quickly, I was able to give this a completely different look. And maybe this really dark one, maybe I don't want it to be so light. Maybe I want it to be white. That might be kind of cool. So it's going to go through and change that around. Very, very quickly, I have done some major changes. And the cool thing about it is that this is a batch process, meaning I am now doing this to not just this one map, but all the maps in that folder. And I want to bring up that folder for you. And now let me come over here. So this is that folder. This is where I started. I grabbed all the maps, and you can see this is that first map that you saw. And these are very dark. Really don't fit that. I'm going to go and show these larger. So we're going to go to extra large, and you get to see these are very dark. Some of them are very colorful, which really would not work. So it took these and then it turned them into, if I can get back here to my recolored is what I call it. You can call it whatever you want. And you can see I did a few different variances, and I got that really cool LUT value that we were looking for these textures. So imagine all the other nodes that I showed you and being able to do a full batch process. That is very powerful. Again, I just want to show you, I went through, I took images in my backyard. This is the sidewalk, just to show you how robust and awesome some of these tools are. I can go in, I can create a material. Again, I have this really, really huge seam. And the seam removal tool is super powerful. Look at that. Just in seconds, it goes through and rebuilds my whole scene. So it doesn't matter what I feed into it. You notice I had a pattern of a, of some cloth earlier. Then I used this foresty bark, and now I'm using ground. Then I can do my mutations and go crazy and have as many mutations as I want. And I can batch process this. I can output as a material or as a Unity texture. The other thing I can also do is I can experiment. I can create new textures that don't exist by mixing different nodes together. So I needed to make this choreographed HVAC material for a project which I will be sharing with you guys. I will be putting it on GitHub and sending you links for those of you that attend this Unite session. And you'll have access to see all of the textures that I generated and materials that I generated using ArtEngine. So I got a noise node out of ArtEngine. There's many nodes. I would say please go to help and ArtEngine help and look at the documentation. You will find many nodes which I didn't get to today. So I resized them, I did some gradient remaps, and then I blended them all together. So I ended up with this interesting looking pattern here. I sharpened it up a little bit so we could see it better, and then I generated my maps. And you have to think, what kind of shader is this going to be rendered on? What is happening? So I'm going to be putting this on Chrome. So I'm not too worried about some of the images. I do want some of these that give me some variance. And then I'm going to do a compose material, and then I'm going to export to Unity. And in this instance, when I export to Unity, Unity is going to grab it and automatically bring it in as a HDRP lit or URP lit or standard shader. So let's get to that right now. I'm going to open up Unity. And here we go. And here is the scene that I created. Let me go to that HVAC. And here is that HVAC that I built with that very quickly. I mean, it took me 5 minutes to make it. And here I have a new looking HVAC. Very, very simple to do. Like this trash bin, this I generated inside of ArtEngine. As you can see, it came in as a full material, and it had my base map, my mask map, and my normal map. And if we click on the mask map, we can actually see that it has other maps in here. So this is kind of cool that it already went through and created all the necessary plugins and set things up for us, so we can come in here and just start working in Unity and not have to worry about mapping all of my connections and creating that shader, or actually in this case, that material. So how does it work? How did I get that in here? So let me show you how that works. The first thing you're going to do is you are going to go to the asset store. Again, you have to go to a website. It's going to say search online. When you do so, you are going to search for ArtEngine Importer. And what this is going to allow Unity to do, it's going to allow it to then import any maps that are created and materials that are created in ArtEngine automatically. So I will show you what that looks like. Once you get that done, you are going to be able to go to, if I remember correctly here, yes, here we go, Assets, Create, Artomatics, ArtEngine, Importer Settings. And when you click on that, it's going to populate one of these new ArtEngine Importer settings. And you're going to have some options. You're going to have standard or HDRP lit. If you're using HDRP, since I am currently using HDRP in this scene, if I were using Universal Render Pipeline, I would get standard or URP or Universal Render Pipeline instead of HDRP, if that was the case. And then I get to delete some of the files on import if I want to. I just keep them because I can then still access them and change them in ArtEngine. So let's do an export so we get to see how this works. So we're going to look at this guy here. We're going to say, okay. So right now, and you can see I've done this demo a couple times. I am going to, I guess I'm going to make a new one. So I'm going to make a new folder and I'm going to call it HVAC 002. Why not? And I'm going to select this folder, and then I'm just going to call it HVAC Chrome _ 002, so we keep things in unison there. And then, yeah, PNGs are fine. And then I'm going to click export. I could have clicked on here and done execute. So it's going to go through and generate these maps for me. And then while it goes through, this is, let's see how many maps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maps. And if I'm not mistaken, they're pretty big. Or they're 2K. Okay, they're not, I think so. Yeah, everything's 2K. Okay, perfect. And it looks like it's finished. Everything's done. Let me go back to ArtEngine. And ArtEngine is going through and importing these. So that's super cool. And I have no idea why it's doing this, so we're going to clear that up. And back into my scene. I can now look for that. Remember HVAC 002, here is my material. I can grab it and I can throw it on this trash can, and everything is set up for me. I will make it double-sided so we don't see through the trash can. And here we go. I have this trash can. Already set up, and I'm not sure why I have a line there. I don't think I made it a seamless texture because I wasn't too worried about it. And again, we can change some of these parameters. I can make it full metallic and shiny, and we can remap some of these things and kind of change things around. Oop. So there you have it. I'm actually going to rotate this because, I guess it's my lighting that's creating that that line right there. Oh, okay, so it's not my texture, so I'm fine with that. I guess it's just the way my lighting is coming in and the way that material is. But as you can see, it's now a very cool chrome bin. Wow, that is super chrome. But that is essentially what I wanted. And now in the scene, I want to show you guys some other fun stuff. So I'm going to go to my top view here, and I am going to click on this carpet, and this is something I wanted to show you. I'm going to zoom in so you can see these were all made in ArtEngine. And I have a nice little script here that goes through the different materials. So you noticed we used that gray, and then we got all the colors on that last one. So I'm going to go through. I do have some different, that's that floor that I made. I said, hey, why not? Let's just throw it in here. So you can see just by using that color transfer node, I was able to get these really cool lines in here. I didn't have to go in and paint them. Imagine having to paint this carpet and get all those nice little bumps. I just let ArtEngine do that pretty much instantly for me. And there you go. There's another variation of it where they're a little bit darker. So that is very, very powerful. Did a very, very similar thing on top of this table, where we could go through and pick different colors and different wood patterns, even using the same normal map. But it looks perfect. It looks fine, and you can start seeing how powerful this is. Here is that that cloth material that that we unwrapped, and it's super, super awesome. I can also map them to to different shaders. This one I actually have on a shader graph shader. As you can see, this is a shader graph, but I can map it to anything. Here's another variation, here's another variation, here's another variation, and so forth. So everything in this scene was textured and built in shader graph. I am building my lighting in here as I'm moving, so it got a little bit dark. We'll wait a little bit, and it will then come back. There we go. And this scene will be for you guys to use. I do want to show you one more thing beforehand. So this is, I did not do this. This was actually one of the demos that was shown to me by the team. So this is another node, which is super cool, which is called multi-angle. I wanted to show you really quickly. This is using kind of a wicker basket material. So this is a multi-angle to texture, kind of photogrammetry of scans and captures. So what you do is you have your camera in place, you have your whatever you want to take a picture of, and you kind of move the lighting around it in a counterclockwise or clockwise fashion. And when you plug these in, you can tell it, okay, this is how I set up. I did 8 inputs. I brought in the bitmap, and I had input 1 light direction, and these were my angles, and I did it clockwise, and so forth. So then you can get really, really good normals out of this. So we have all this light information. We crop it just to make it nice and small. We do any gradient removals if we want to get rid of some of them, sharpen it back up. We compose the material and we create our normal. We can do a pattern unwrap on it, and we can see how it unwraps the pattern. And then we're going to do a little mutation on it, generate the height, remove some of the gradient to make that height. And by the way, you can use these in between any node. It doesn't have to be just the color node for gradient removal. Did some levels, a little blurring, and then compose the material finally. And what you'll notice when you use this is that you really have some really high depth normals that you can use. Again, you can go in and change some of these parameters if you don't want it to be that high, and so forth. But this is an illustration of how you can use this this technique to get some really, really, really good normals. So for those of you that are doing some, high character work, or you're doing some, you want to capture, stones or rocks out there, and you want to get that depth that you can't really get just from one image, you can go ahead and use our multi-angle to texture. Again, there are many more nodes I would like to share with you all, yet it has come to ending point on my presentation due to time limitations. I hope to see you creating some amazing content out there with ArtEngine. Again, you can register for a free trial of ArtEngine and try it out on your own and enjoy it. Let us know in the forums. Let us know here what you think of it and what you would like to see more to it. And Louise Scully, who is part of the ArtEngine product team, is going to be giving a Unite Now presentation on ArtEngine's roadmap. So please don't miss that. Look for it. It's going to inform you on where we are going in the future. And my time is up. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.